Hi there, my name's Jane Wilkinson. I'm the Climate Change Training Officer for Forward Cooper Angus. I'm here today to demonstrate how to sharpen secateurs. It's really important that we get a good, clean, sharp edge on secateurs and loppers before we go doing any pruning of shrubs and fruit trees in the garden. If they're blunt, what can happen is that you tear the bark and the branches and cause infections to get into your fruit trees and your shrubs. For the first stage, we're going to clean the secateurs, and for this you need an old newspaper, some wire wool, which you can get from a DIY shop. Alternatively, you could use an old pan scourer, just as long as you use the ones that didn't have detergent already in them, like Brillo pads. You want one that doesn't have detergent, so you won't be using that on any of the working parts of the secateurs. And you also need a bit of 3-in-1 oil. So these are bypass secateurs, and the blade slides past the anvil, the bottom section, when these secateurs are cutting something. And you need to clean off all the rust and the sap so that that action is nice and smooth. It won't work very well otherwise. So you open the secateurs, put a little bit of the 3-in-1 oil on, hold onto the secateurs with one hand, and then use the oil to clean the blade on both sides and to clean the anvil as well. You can do this once you've separated the, taken apart the secateurs, but if you don't have all the kit to take apart the secateurs, you can do it this way as well, with them just open like this. This side. And not forgetting to clean the anvil as well. You have to be very careful doing this so that you don't catch your fingers on the sharp edge of the blade. So if you need to, you could always wear a work glove whilst doing this. Obviously it's a bit safer if you separate all the parts of the secateurs. Another thing you can do is to clean the spring as well. I've just popped the spring out from between the two handles. And the same thing again, a little bit of oil and your wire wool, and give the spring a good clean. Otherwise, if it's rusted up, you won't get a smooth action. Before I take apart the secateurs, I always tend to put a mark on the handle and a mark on the blade, which is attached to that section of the handle. And I also tend to take a photograph, so it helps you to reassemble them after you've finished sharpening all the parts. So you just take a permanent marker, put a mark on the handle and a mark on the blade on the same side. One way of separating the parts of the secateurs is to use adjustable spanners. So I've got one adjustable spanner holding the bolt at the back, and then another one that I'm going to put on the nut. And you can see you just start to loosen the nut until you can get it loose enough to take off by hand. The easier way, which I'll show you in a minute, is using the bench vise. There we go. And then you just gradually take this out at the back. The much easier way of separating the component parts of the secateurs is to put the secateurs in a bench vise and use a socket set. and just that's more or less taking it off. That's it. So I've removed the spring, which I'll put in the wee pot. I've also taken out the bolt and the nut and just put them safely in the pot. It's so easy to lose bits and pieces. I've already lost a washer that should go with the nut and bolt. Then I can separate out the handle and the blade, and the bit of the handle that goes with the blade I'll put to one side. And this is the anvil section, which I'll put over here. I've already marked those two bits as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to clean up the anvil part of the secateurs. We're going to make sure that we smooth down the curved section of the anvil, and we'll clean up the back of the anvil as well. Just so that there's nothing, no nicks in the anvil, and there's no bits of stuff cemented onto the anvil or rusty bits that will impede the movement of the blade. So I'm using this file, which is an Axminster diamond file. Other retailers do sell other types of files as well, but this is particularly good. It's a really good quality file and it's not too expensive. And I'm going to use the curved section of the file to clean up the curved bit of the anvil. And you only need to do a few strokes to do this. It's just to get any rust or any congealed sap off the anvil. That's that done. Then take it out of the vise with a little bit of water. Put a wee bit of water on there. That helps the movement of the file. And then use the flat side of the file here against the flat of the anvil, just to clean it up and make sure you've taken off any rusty bits. Or better still, you can use this diamond stone, this sharpening stone, to do this bit. Bit of water on there. Press the anvil flat onto the stone. Actually, what is really helpful is some blue tack on the table that stops the stone from moving. And again, take the flat of the anvil across the diamond stone just a few times. You can feel it if there's any sap or anything that's causing to catch and not move. So once you've done that, just dry it all off. You should also make sure that there's no oil on the anvil or on the blade before you sharpen them using the diamond stones. You don't want any oil getting into the diamond stones or the file. So that's really important, that. So dry it all off, and then that's the anvil dealt with, ready to reattach to the handle and the blade later. So put that to one side. Okay, I'm now going to sharpen the blade using a diamond stone, because we need something with a fine enough grit to actually get this sharp. And it's only on the, if you can see, the shiny section of the blade, not the flat bit, but the bit that has the bevel, the curved down section. And it's just that I'm going to sharpen. And there's a number of different ways of doing this, but I tend to work it away from me. And I've got to make sure I've got to tilt the blade until I find the correct angle. So that's the angle that the bevel runs at. It's a shallow angle. And then I'm going to steadily sweep the blade across the stone, maintaining that angle all the time. You don't want to be tipping and rolling the blade, and you want to get the whole length of the blade sharpened all in one go. So I tilt it a few times until I feel I've got the right angle, and then push it across the stone. And you keep on doing this, and shortly we will check. And you put a fair amount of pressure on, but not so hard that the blade won't run smoothly. So I put the blade on flat, then I tilt it, then I get ready to push from the back of the blade. And I'll keep on doing this until I feel that I've got the blade thoroughly sharp. Okay, another way of sharpening the blade is to get a slightly thinner diamond stone, which you can hold in your hand, comfortably in the holding hand, and then to hold your blade uppermost, the cutting edge uppermost, and then just work this stone along the blade using circular motions, but still you've got to find that same angle first that you were doing before, and you've got to keep the sharpening stone at that angle as you go along the blade. And again, you can do this a few times, just keeping on going. And when you've finished, if you turn the blade over, on the back of the blade, on the flat side, you'll feel a little rolling over, a burr of the rolled over metal that you've sharpened coming onto this side. And you just really gently want to take that off on the flat side with the stone, just a couple of very gentle sweeps that will just take that rolled edge of metal off and make sure that the cutting side stays nice and sharp. Before reassembling the secateurs, it's a good idea to give everything a bit of an oil first. So I just tend to get all the moving parts oiled and all the point where the nut and bolts would go. And then the secateurs are ready to reassemble. So I attached the blade to the lower handle section. I put a mark on that earlier on so I know that they go together. Like that. And then this bit will go on top like here, and then I've got to place the bolt through. Can be a bit fiddly just getting them lined up sometimes, especially when you've not got your glasses on. Just loosely tighten the bolt. Get that in place, and then the nut will go on the other side. So it comes in on that side, and I just attach everything loosely to begin with. And then reinsert the spring. And then I'll tighten that up with the socket set and the adjustable spanners. I've tightened the bolt a bit with the adjustable spanners, and then I'm going to sit it in the bench vise and then finish it off with the socket set. And then just to show that we've managed to sharpen that, so that's the secateurs all done. Just a quick mention before we finished about the tools that we've been using. This sharpening file is a 400 grit grade diamond file, and so it's not the finest of files, so it can be used if you're, instead of the diamond stone, if you're just doing a quick sharpen on a very regular basis. When you need a bit more kind of remedial care of your secateurs and had to take them apart and clean them and sharpen, a 600 grit diamond stone is much better. So we've used a 400 grit file and a 600 grit diamond stone, and both of those can be obtained from Axminster. One of the ways we can significantly reduce our carbon footprint in the garden is by using hand tools instead of power tools. If we take good care of the secateurs and loppers, we can make them last a lifetime and lower our carbon footprint even further by not throwing them away when they become blunt or corroded. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. If you'd like to find out more about our low carbon training courses, get in touch on the Forward Coupar Angus website or through our Facebook pages.